Let's now talk so much royal news with the great Michael Cole, former BBC royal correspondent, but he's so much more than that. And he joins us now from merry old England. Great man, lovely to see you. Prince Andrew, yet another week rolls by and we now know even more about his interactions with the disgraceful Jeffrey Epstein. This one takes the cake, doesn't it?
Well, it is an extraordinary state of affairs because in that notorious 2019, I remember it very well, interview that Emily Maitlis of BBC's Newsnight conducted with His Royal Highness the Duke of York, he made it plain that he'd gone to New York and stayed for 5 days in Jeffrey Epstein's fabulous villa. And he said that he went there merely to do the gentlemanly thing, the right, the decent thing, to tell Jeffrey Epstein to his face that he could no longer be his friend because of his conviction for paedophile offences and the strange sentence that he'd served in Florida, where he didn't seem to spend much time in jail at all. I mean, it's an extraordinary thing to go and spend 5 days to tell somebody something quite simply that could have been said on the phone or even by a letter. And now it's emerged that Prince Andrew was having other discussions with this said late Epstein, and those were business affairs. There's been talk of oil contracts. So quite clearly, it wasn't the severance that there should have been a lot earlier, even in 2010. So I think somebody's being disingenuous here. And it's another, I think, black mark against the late Queen's second son.
Do you think that we're starting to hear about this because Andrew has been making a lot of noise, that he doesn't like the arrangements that the King is putting him under? Or are we hearing about this from the American end of things?
Well, it's very interesting, and that's a very perceptive question, because quite clearly there's not a great deal of love lost between the King and his younger brother. The King was never a great admirer of Andrew, even in the palmy days when they were closer to each other than they are now. There are problems over the residency that the Prince has of Windsor Lodge, a beautiful white wedding cake of a mansion set amid trees in Windsor Great Park. At one stage, the King wanted him to move out to go to the lesser Frogmore Cottage, where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, Harry and Meghan, were supposed to live before they decamped to Canada and then to California. But Prince Andrew is saying he's got a 75-year lease on Windsor Lodge, and he's been spending money on repairing it, upkeep and so on, and he refuses to move. It's a difficult situation. It would obviously be much more appropriate for Windsor Lodge, which is where the Queen Mother lived for many years quite happily, and had lived there with her husband when he was alive before he became king. It would have been more appropriate for Prince William and Catherine, the Prince and Princess of Wales, and their 3 children to have moved in there, more in keeping with their status, and quite frankly, much easier to be protected from a security point of view, because you can see Windsor Lodge, Royal Lodge Windsor, from the road, but you can't get anywhere near it. And it would be a perfect place for the heir, the direct heir, the heir apparent, and his wife and 3 children to live. But so there are these problems, and I think there are 1 or 2 people also lurking in the woodwork, in the undergrowth, who have been leaking these stories because they don't want Prince Andrew to be making any comeback soon to royal life. And he's been making noises that he would want to come back. I think that shows, Paul, his sense of delusion about the depth of trouble he is in.